Hello again, and welcome back to Illegally Cited. This is Jesse, and I am back for another channel update and kind of random assortment of topics video. I usually do these about once a month or so, sometimes a little bit more frequently, but as I usually start these videos, I just want to thank everybody for supporting my work, supporting the channel, watching the videos, subscribing, liking, comments. I've gotten some nice comments both in the YouTube comments and on social media like Twitter. So that's really cool. I know we are a good amount over 4,000 subscribers. I haven't looked in a little while. I think it might be like 4,100 something, but like I said, I don't keep really track of it. I'm lucky if I check every once in a while. But it's cool to see the channel is still growing. So again, I thank you for checking out the channel and welcome if you are new. And yeah, just thank you whether you've been here for 10 minutes or 10 years, because this thing has been going, Illegally Cited, has been going for well over 10 years, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, time flies. And if you are new to the channel, I do unlock videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. And sometimes more frequently if there's some cool announcement or accessibility thing happen. Maybe it's a holiday, or you know what? Maybe just because I'm like, I don't know, why not a bonus video? I'm in a good mood or whatever. But Monday, Wednesday, Saturdays are my regular release days for videos. Everything is divided into playlists, so you can hopefully find whatever you're looking for. Low vision, and again, I want to clarify this because I still do get questions in the comments. I try to label most videos with kind of I'll have the game in there or whatever, but a lot of my videos that cover specific games or apps, I will cover them as low vision spotlight or accessible app, accessible game spotlight, those types of things. And low vision spotlight videos, I'll get people asking, is this accessible to blind players? And if it is a low vision spotlight video, it will most likely be a game that I think that you do need some usable vision to play. I'm not saying that you can't try it if you can't see the screen at all. But I'm just saying that like low vision spotlight videos are pretty much, I would recommend that you have some usable vision to be able to play. If it's an accessible app or an accessible game, those you can definitely check out because those are, I found those to be accessible no matter what level of vision you have, including none. But I also cover, hardware reviews, some virtual reality, although I've kind of taken a hiatus from that. Some geeky collectibles that I've gone, my Geek Luke Spotlight series. Again, the Growing Up Illegally Cited. I'm proud of how that series turned out. And I just put another video or two in there fairly recently. So as far as recent channels go, or channels, as far as recent videos go, the last couple weeks, I was inspired by The Blind Life, who did a video on, like what platforms would you recommend if I'm new to all this modern technology? Maybe I want to get a new computer. Maybe I want to get a new phone. I liked what he did there, and I kind of wanted to expand on that. So there's a couple of videos in the last 2 weeks or so where I've covered that in a bit more detail. So I hope that is helpful for you. I also did a video fairly recently that added to the Growing Up Illegally Cited playlist, and these are kind of just some of the things that I've learned doing all this content creation over the past decade or better. Whether it's streaming or doing the YouTube channel or social media, but it's a combination of, just a lot of things that I've learned, like how to handle certain things. A lot of people have this aspiration they want to be a content creator, but they want to do it like as for a living. I don't know that I would really recommend that, especially in the beginning, but watch that video for my full thoughts on all that kind of stuff. But yeah, It has been a crazy and busy month, per usual, but I think a little bit more so, um, a little more chaotic this month, I would say. I tried to do an actual a channel update video kind of toward the middle of the month. I recorded it and I sat on it for a day or so and went, I'm not happy with this. I'm not gonna release it. So be thankful you didn't have to hear me babble in that one, because that one I felt was a little bit all over the place, and I just uh, kind of during a few days of frustration. So a little more. I don't want to say complaining, but it just I don't know. It just wasn't really up to what I wanted it to be. So we're trying it again toward the end of July, and it just the fact that it's nearing the end of July. 2024 is going by way, way too fast. Stop. Please stop. Um, it's nuts. So yeah, like I said, there's a lot of stuff on the channel recently, a lot of variety. I've got a couple of iOS accessible games or even PC accessible games. I found a lot of graphic novel types of games fairly recently, and they all follow kind of a similar interface style. Very straightforward games, but I've really enjoyed the themes of especially a couple of them. And there's one in particular, I'll just say, Slay the Princess. I'm going to have a video out for that, hopefully in the near future. And that one is, I've played it for maybe an hour, maybe if that. And what little I've played of it so far, like it goes some places, man. Like it starts out thinking, oh, okay, it's gonna be, oh, okay, this just maybe based on the choices that I've taken. That's like, okay, that turned out to be that was a thing that happened, and it was kind of weird, and I'm very intrigued to see how it is going forward because it is a mature rated game and kind of gnarly at some points. So look forward to that, but also a few others. And again, I try to space out the accessible games because there aren't near as many of them. Of course, we're going to have some boomer shooters because, of course, we are. That's my jam. And we are eating really good this year. Like this summer alone, God, we've had Fallen Aces, Sulaco, Angerfoot, Mullet Mad Jack. There's another one that I can't think of the name of right now that just came out today that I'm probably going to check out. It's more of a Wolfenstein-like. There's rumors that the Extranium game, which is also kind of a Wolfenstein game that I've covered on the channel in the past, that might be coming out sometime in the fairly near future, possibly around September-ish, and I'm very much looking forward to that. I really like that one. So, but what's so cool is like all those games that I mentioned, yeah, they're retro shooters to some degree, but they're all so different from each other. You got Fallen Aces, which is like an immersive sim kind of a deal, and it's just got this really sweet presentation and art style overall. Like the audio in it is, like the voice acting is excellent. Sulaco is some sort of crazy wizardry that you wouldn't even think would be possible in a GZ Doom game. That I still need to get back to. Mullet Mad Jack, this just, again, very, very cool anime art style, but like this constant ticking down timer and obstacles and traps and enemies and just craziness. And then Angerfoot, which I've covered a few times in demo form on the channel, but I just, did the full version now because it's in 1.0 now. And, again, that one's just totally different as well. You shoot some stuff, but it's largely you and your almighty boot just kicking the crap out of doors and objects and dudes that are in like animal costumes, or I don't know what the hell's going on with some of those things, but wild games, man. And we still got more coming. So yeah, good year. Let's see. I actually had to write down a few things so I remember. remember everything that I wanted to babble about here. So yeah, that's what's going on with the YouTube channel. There's definitely more videos to come. Within August and September and even October, the next 3 months are going to be ridiculous. I mean, we have Star Wars Outlaws. That I'm looking forward to. I can't even. I'm not even going to try to name all the games because we've got some Nintendo stuff. I'm still sitting on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game that just came out on the Switch, and it'll come to PC later this fall. We're getting another TMNT game, I think, later this fall. Um, some more shooters and more. Oh, Astrobot, which I'm very, very much looking forward to. There's just so much stuff. A Zelda game, man, it's nuts. I don't know when the hell I'm going to find time to play it all. But while we're on the topic of YouTube and craziness, one of the things that I talked a lot more about in the last video, which I'm just going to touch on here because I find it really fatiguing in general. Just all the drama and the people treating each other like crap all the time. But just some of the weird YouTube trends. There was this whole controversy thing, oh, an Elden Ring update came out, and so we're going to have this difficulty in gaming discourse again. And I'm so tired of it. I'm over it. I'm done. I've said my piece, as have many, many others. Yes, I will sometimes play on an easier difficulty, but I don't want accessibility to be equated with making a game easier as far as difficulty settings go. I want the game to be in its original form intended by the developer, but just have things in the game that can make, some barriers because of my disability and my visioning in my case. I just want them to be lowered so I can play the game at whatever level I need to, whether it's easy, medium, hard, whether there is no difficulty settings. I just want the level, some of the things that I have difficulty with because of my vision, level that playing field so I can enjoy the game just like everybody else. So that's all I'm really going to say about that. A few people got just brutalized earlier this month on YouTube, and there's a channel that I used to sort of follow the guy a little bit when he was on like Screw Attack along with the Angry Video Game Nerd, and there was some really cool stuff back on Game Trailers back in the day. But there was Screw Attack, they were on there. They had this pop fiction thing that was really cool. There was just some really neat stuff on Game Trailers, but then they went under. But yeah, just them and some other places just really savaged somebody for talking about difficulty and accessibility, this whole argument, and I'm just so done. I'm tired of it. There was something else I was going to mention relating to that. What was it? But yeah, I mean, people just attacking everybody for whatever reason. The whole, and it was also due to the term situational disability. I'll touch on it really quickly, but as it relates to technical accessibility, I totally see where the term can be helpful, because the argument was like, oh well, if I have a child that's a situational disability, because I may have to pause the game and attend to my kid, whatever their needs were. But I guess the Elden Ring does not have a pause button even when playing solo. And I guess it was sort of weirdly worded maybe, but I see where they were coming from. And a situational disability is just something that anybody can have, it's something that you don't have control over, that you really can't change. You get a phone call, or the fire alarm goes off, or whatever, and you need to be able to pause the game, or something happens to where like you can't interact with the game the way you usually do for whatever reason, and it may be for 10 seconds, it may be, for a lot longer, but um, I think there is some merit to that term, and it can help describe types of accessibility. And also, I think it can be helpful, if you're approaching a developer, especially like, let's say, management, who maybe you get, you approach a developer and there's like there's some developers in the game that, oh yeah, we'd love to do some accessibility, but management isn't letting us prioritize it. And so another thing that I've found that can be helpful. I mean, it's annoying that it has to be this way, but hey, you know what? If it works, it works. Don't tie accessibility to disability all the time, because yes, obviously you want to hire people with disabilities, you want to work with people with disabilities, so you address any accessibility issues the way they should be, so that people can use your product, enjoy the game, whatever. But like this situational disability, if you can relate it to somebody who doesn't have a disability and who maybe dismisses accessibility, and so it's like, oh, well, I don't know, there's not enough people playing with disabilities, it doesn't matter. But then if you approach it and say, oh, well, man, have you ever had a broken arm, or have you ever needed to use subtitles because you didn't want to wake your kid or your family? Have you ever adjusted the sensitivity of your controls or remapped your controls? And if you frame it that way and go, oh, I guess I can see how some of this might affect me. So like, if you can, it's kind of more of a selfish reason, but it's like, if you can make it relate to them, where they kind of dismiss, your disabled audience. But if you can kind of be like, well, hey, if that's not working, try and relate it to them. So it's like, oh, well, wait, if we don't put this feature in, that could affect me. And like I said, I guess it's a way to get it through, get it through their thick head. But yeah, I mean, the other things with YouTube is just like, there's channels that are just, I still find really good channels. Like, I still find some cool documentaries. I still find gaming content that I like. But it's so funny, the trends that you see in like streaming, Twitch and YouTube and all that, where, it was really big on Let's Plays and stuff like that for a while, and that moved over to streaming. But then it was, now it's like all these like YouTube shorts, because of the TikTok generation, which I typically don't like much at all. But also, it's just, there's whole channels that just feed off of, just like the press, the mainstream press, like they feed off of negativity, and it's all these feuds and drama between different YouTubers and channels. And like, you know what? Grow up, people. And you make a living, like, people actually pay you for this crap. I mean, just the whole stuff with, if you've ever heard of Boogie 2988, I don't recommend looking into that train wreck, because, boy, that's just a really bad situation all around. But like, all of that stuff, and then, something gets announced and everyone just dogpiles, and just so much negativity and all this just weird stuff. And I'm so over it. Like, if I go online, I want to enjoy games, I want to learn new things, I want to interact with people that aren't complete dicks, or that aren't constantly negative all the time. Like, it's that's so much to ask. But all the negativity, and like, you can't even have a reasonable conversation or argument. It's like, if you don't agree with me exactly, you are my mortal enemy, you're going to hell, and I will hunt you to the ends of the earth. I mean, that's the way that things have gotten. It's like, with all this politics bullshit that's gone on the last month. Oh, like, I dread November, and at the same time, I just want it to be over. I am so damn sick of all this politics bullshit and all this division and all this. Like I said, you can't even, state what you think without somebody jumping down your throat and whatever. So it's just, I'm not even going to talk about politics other than to say it has been one hell of a crazy month with the attempted shooting and now Biden stepping down, and then now we got to figure out who's going to be the Democratic person, Kamala probably, I guess. And I said, I look at it as minimally as I can so I can try to stay a little bit informed, but I just can't deal with all this stupidity and drama and whatever. I'm so over it, and I'm happy to be in my little hermit hole here. So with that being said, it is also Disability Pride Month, I guess, and which is cool, but I do have sort of mixed feelings on it. Even Global Accessibility Awareness Day, like, yes, I have participated in that in the last few years, try to do a somewhat of a related video for it, whether it's a specific topic or highlighting an accessible game that came out recently or whatever. Because I think it is important to have, it can be helpful to have a specific day or a specific month to really draw people's attention, especially I just talked earlier about like, oh, what does this have to do with me? Why should we put accessibility into our products or our games? It's important to have that, but I also don't like, I'm going to advocate for accessibility 365 days a year. I like doing it. I think it's important to do because at some point everyone's going to have some kind of temporary or permanent disability. We're all going to age. So it's important. And so, in today's age, it's so easy if you're a company or even an individual just to be like, oh, yay, it's Global Accessibility Awareness Day. Oh, it's Disability Pride Month. And, you put some tweet out there, you put something on Facebook, or you even do a little feel-good video clip or something that's not hard to do. It draws attention, but it also, so much of it is for presentation and like, see, look at, we care about accessibility, but really do you? Yeah, it's easy to throw a post or throw a paragraph of text up there or a short video clip or whatever, but how does your company go? Like, or how do you do things? Like when you post images to social media, do you actually include alt text with your images? No. There was a thing I saw literally on Twitter earlier today where a company had posted some announcement thing, and they're like, oh, this is so great and whatever. And somebody replied, well, yeah, that's great, but you guys focus on accessibility, yet you don't even label your images. So there's that. It's like, you have to walk the walk. You can't just throw a tweet or something quick out there and be like, see, yep, we know accessibility is important, and then just move on with your life. And I also, yes, I am proud of some of my accomplishments, a lot of my accomplishments, and I am proud of them, whether I have a disability or not. I'm proud that I have lived on my own. I'm proud that I got through college and have a bachelor's, master's degree. I'm proud that I have a full-time job and that I can support myself. I can support, my girlfriend if I had one, I'm proud of some of the cool things I've gotten to do. The work I've done with the YouTube channel and accessibility advocacy and consulting. I'm proud of all of that. But yeah, I mean, some of it I am also proud of, because of or in spite of my disability. Like, oh, you want to tell me that I can't do something? Well, screw you. I'm going to do it anyway. I remember, in grade school, it's like, well, we don't think you can keep up, and so we're not going to let you play the drums and blah blah blah, whatever. You know, 7, 8 years ago, whenever it was, I started teaching myself drums, and I'm probably never going to be an expert drummer by any means, but I've literally, even recently, I felt myself getting better at it. I enjoy it. It's fun. And yeah, to all those people that said I couldn't do it, yeah, suck it. um, and the horrible unemployment and underemployment statistic for blind and visually impaired or even people with disabilities, I'm glad and I'm proud that I fought through that, and because I had, like I said, follow the growing up illegally cited employment video where I talk about the hell that I went through trying to find my first full-time real job out of college. It was about 3.5 years of living hell. Um, but at the same time, like, I don't want to just be defined by my disability. Yes, my day job is disability related and accessibility. Yes, what I do on the YouTube channel is largely accessibility and technology and gaming related. But there's, like I said, there's a lot to me besides my disability, or there's a lot to me beside accessibility and disability. Like, just a person like everybody else. I like other stuff. I like music. I like movies. I like games and music and I don't know, lots of other cool stuff. But yeah, so that's just kind of my shtick on Disability Pride Month. Like I said, it's cool. I'm glad it's there. I can't really think of anything specific that I'm gonna call out. Like do a specific Disability Pride Month video. But I think this month I have put out, like I said, a few videos on hey, if you are getting a new computer, a new phone, what to look for. What have I learned as a content creator, even a disabled content creator? Those are just as relevant. So check those videos out. Check out some of the accessible games I've covered. So enough of that stuff. Now we get into some fun stuff. God, I can't believe that was this month. Summer Games Done Quick. It feels like ages ago already. And I keep forgetting to actually sign up for it because it's literally right in my backyard. Like, it's in Minneapolis, so I could easily get there. But you can't just show up. Like, you actually have to register for certain days or whatever if you want to attend some of the live events and stuff. And so I keep forgetting, and I really need to do that because I think the last several years it has been held in Minneapolis, and so I don't know if it will be forever going forward, but I really need to try to attend it at least to a little bit of a degree at some point here because it's really cool. Like, I enjoy watching people just break these games. It's like, oh man, I can't even beat this game period, and you guys are just destroying it. And both Awesome Games Done Quick and Summer Games Done Quick are doing it for a good reason. They fundraise for charities, Prevent Cancer Foundation, Doctors Without Borders. I think those are the main two that they do, but like they have other smaller events throughout the year as well that will donate to different charities. And I think that's a great thing because, as we all know, we've all lost somebody, I'm sure, due to cancer, especially in the accessibility community. We just lost Brandon Cole, super blind man. Fuck cancer, needs to go away. So, I like following the event. I like supporting it. And one of the coolest things you want to check out if you didn't watch it, you can go check out the Games Done Quick YouTube channel. All the different speed runs are archived there. And they had one for Awesome Games Done Quick this January, but then they had one this summer, and this guy trained his dog. In January, he played one of the modes in Gyromite, and he made a special adaptive controller for his dog And then he would give them commands to basically like, oh, if you sit, or if you say button, or you say sit, and depending on which one of those things, it would hit like the A or B button, so you could do it. And the one this summer, that was a virtual one in January, but they actually had him live. And I wish to God, if I would have remembered to sign up for that, I would have loved to see that and meet that dog. Because the dog's name was Peanut Butter, which is cool. He's this Shiba Inu, really cool looking dog too. I think Shiba Inus look really cool. A friend of mine had one for a while. But this summer, they had him playing this, I think it was Ken Giffrey Jr. baseball. And so, yeah, he would give commands for like issuing commands to, button, okay, and then he would swing and try to hit the ball. Or you'd hit different buttons to do different pitches. And the game actually went to, I believe it was the 12th inning, and they won it as a walk-off home run, I think it was. But it was just a really fun and cool speed run. I highly recommend checking that out. Like I said, I think it was the Ken Griffey Jr. baseball, and it was by the dog Peanut Butter, and I think it was it JSR or JXR? One of the two, I think, is the owner's name, the guy that worked with the dog. So it was just a really, really cool thing. I mean, there was a lot of other things there, but that one really stood out to me. It was just really fun to watch, and I had to bring that up. Around the same time, we had the summer blindness conventions, and the funny thing is, I really haven't heard about much of anything from those conventions. I was thinking maybe we would hear about a little bit of, AI updates, announcements. Maybe we'd get maybe people got to see a sneak peek of some live AI stuff for something like Be My Eyes or Ira or any of the other any of the other ones that are doing, the AI stuff, the Envision stuff. But I don't think we heard anything about that. I mean, there was a few Braille things, like the I can't remember what it's called, but like essentially the Braille and Speak, modern Braille and Speak type thing. People are kind of intrigued about that. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing it, but I don't know that I would ever buy one. You got your usual software updates and new CCTVs or things like that, but nothing like, I haven't really heard much in the way of announcements, in the way of interviews, in the way of coverage. It's just kind of like, yeah, it happened. It was there. It was fine. It was good to meet people, but I really haven't heard anything about the summer convention, so I can't really tell you guys about anything that I heard about, really. I do kind of find it funny that, was it APH, and they're doing the whole thing with the multi-line Braille display, which in theory is cool, and they're like, oh, it's going to revolutionize education and all this stuff, and I'm like, yeah, okay, except I believe they're charging like $18,000 for the bloody thing. I mean, like, okay, individuals are obviously not going to buy it, but even schools, like schools and governments, with people aren't getting as much, schools aren't getting as much funding, states aren't getting as much funding, businesses aren't getting as much funding. And you want to keep up and have other accessibility tools for your students or for your employees. And I'm like, yeah, that it would revolutionize things, but for 18 grand, I mean, God, I think you could buy a like a basic new car for that price. Hell, you could buy a pretty nice used car for that price. It just seems like so much money. I mean, I get it. It sounds cool. I would still like to see one. I'm trying to remember. It's not the Mantis. It's I can't remember the name of the bloody thing. I had it in my head just a few minutes ago. Monarch. It's a neat idea, but dear God, man, 18,000. But and you got to remember, that's the price. But then by the time if you're going to spend that much, you damn sure better get a hardware warranty on the thing, and then you're going to have probably a couple thousand in taxes. So It's going to be 20 grand by the time you're done with that thing. And I just, and people wonder why Braille literacy is so low. That's why I'm so glad that NLS has partnered with, Humanware and I forget the other company they partner with, but like to subsidize these Braille e-readers to get some, refreshable Braille in the hands of people so they can learn it and use it. Because everything Braille is just so damned expensive. I mean, the Braille writer is still, $900 or something like that, somewhere in there. I know people say the Slate and stylus, and sure, whatever, but like, I don't know. It's frustrating. It really is. I don't want to go on that whole rant here, but I know they talked about the Monarch, and I've heard a little bit about that, but yeah, not much happening in the summer conventions. Maybe we'll hear more in archive podcasts from people in the future, but as of now, I don't know. One thing that I found sort of interesting, and it ties into, I listened to the last episode of the Parallel podcast, and this is from Shelley Brisbane. She does the whole iOS Access for All books. She's done those for the last several years, and I picked one up just to see what it would be like and see if it would be something we could recommend to our clients and whatnot. And it's a pretty good guide of accessibility. And I was a fairly early guest. I think it was I don't remember what episode it was, but I was a panel guest member on the Parallel podcast fairly early on, I think. And we were talking about like low vision and dark modes and different things like that. And so that was a fun conversation. And one thing that I like about what the Parallel podcast did was they would try to get people both that were either blind or visually impaired, like a user or a developer, and then they would get somebody who was not disabled, who had no disability, but maybe they were a developer. And so you kind of got to bridge the gap, and you kind of got like, it was a cool way for, a non-disabled developer to communicate with their potential community and learn more about accessibility and learn, we learn things from the developer's side. It's like, oh, well, this is why things are done the way they are. This is what, why they had to make this choice. Or it was just a really kind of cool thing. But unfortunately, life gets in the way and you got to pull back on something. I mean, that's why I'm not streaming really these days. And but apparently the Parallel podcast is no more, at least for now. So I listened to the last episode of that. But one thing that came out of that I found was pretty interesting, and one thing that came out of the NFB conference was one of their, what's the word I'm looking for? Resolutions, like things they vote on. One of their resolutions kind of tied into what they were talking about on that last episode. And it is this whole concept of, I guess Jonathan Mosen did a presentation a year or two ago about it, I guess. And he kind of dubbed it the defect equity framework. I don't know what NFB actually called it this year, but I'm curious what that's going to entail, because apparently they passed something like it, where there's this whole idea of, people complain about long-standing bugs, whether it's iOS or Windows or your screen reader or your whatever technology you're using, and justifiably so. Some of these long-standing bugs should be fixed. They should have been fixed ages ago, you'd think. But this whole defect equity framework is this whole idea of, okay, when let's say you get the feedback from several people about this accessibility bug, and you choose, well, yeah, we'll get to it eventually, but we're going to ship it for now and we'll deal with it later. So ask yourself, if you were shipping this same product at the same time, but this bug affected everybody and not just people with disabilities, would you still ship that update? Would you still ship that product? If the answer is no, then why the hell should people with disabilities be expected to be a second-class citizen? It's like, well, no, we would never launch this for our mainstream audience, but yeah, you people with disabilities, you guys can wait a little longer, can't you? Because in a lot of cases, if you are fully able, you're non-disabled, you can see, you can hear, you can move, you can process, whatever, and you maybe have multiple different ways that you can figure out a way to do something. But if you have a disability, and let's say, with the whole Twitter thing where it broke for a few days, we literally couldn't use that app. If iOS does something and they release an update and, oh, I'm sorry, your Braille display doesn't work anymore. Well, that may be a huge inconvenience for blind users, but what about deafblind users who that's how they need to use their technology? That's their communication lifeline. That's the only way they can interact with the device because they can't use the voice over speech. They have to use Braille. So, not testing these things and letting them slide, I think, and technology, again, I say it doesn't solve every problem, but it certainly helps in a lot of cases, just look at what we have, the way we can go online and access information. We can access books and educational materials. We can, use AI to have things described to us now. We can OCR text and handwriting. We can, do shopping and get groceries delivered. We can pay our bills. We can do our finances. We can, what a lot of people, even like, mainstream apps or mainstream devices, what a non-disabled audience would take for granted and use as a, kind of a luxury, is more of a necessity for us. And so this whole idea that, like, well, if you wouldn't ship it for your average user, why is it okay to let that through for a disabled group of users or a disabled audience? Like the iPhone voiceover focus issue, that's something that's been driving me and many other people crazy for years. It seems like it's gotten a bit better, but that's a long-standing bug. I mean, there's other bugs. Windows has had long-standing bugs. Anything has had long-standing bugs. But I do almost want to look at that resolution just to see what that entails and what they're theoretically wanting to do with it. Because, part of me is like, there is something to be said for that. Because, if, like, let's say that if I didn't use VoiceOver, I'm just using my iPhone, but think about, Windows or Mac or any platform. If I boot up my iPhone one day and I all of a sudden can't really use VoiceOver because it just doesn't work. Like, there was an update several years ago where people who use VoiceOver couldn't use the phone. They couldn't do calls, or they couldn't use the keypad when on a call. There's a couple of different cases. So, that's a pretty core function of your phone. You need to be able to communicate. You need to be able to make calls. If the phone just didn't work, they would have never shipped that update to the general audience, the general user base. But somehow that got through because it didn't go through enough testing, or people reported it and they didn't fix it, whatever the case. If I lost access to VoiceOver, on my phone, yes, I would still be able to do some things as a low vision user, and I would have to resort to, the built-in zoom feature, which, it works, but a lot of people wouldn't even have that luxury. So, I think there is something to be said for asking that question. If you wouldn't let something through to your general audience, why should we be forced? Why should this be acceptable that we have to endure it? And obviously the bugs are going to slip through, and like that's fine, whatever, and they can fix them. But I think it's a pretty reasonable question to ask. And I didn't put this on my list, but I have to mention it. This whole fiasco that happened on Friday. Wow, good Lord. I remember I woke up in the middle of the night. I had to get up and use the bathroom, and so I got up, and then my phone went off. I had some notification, so I looked at it, and it was some Twitter notification, so I looked at it, and then I went to my feed and just saw the first thing, and it was this big image from The Verge. It's like, a lot of computers are failing because of this CloudStrike thing, and Windows computers are endlessly rebooting, and it's like planes are being grounded, banks aren't, like so many different services, especially overseas, were being affected. Because like I said, I woke up at like 3 a.m, and Australia and India and places that were already well ahead of us were experiencing just tons of stuff. And then when everyone woke up here in the US, there was still a lot of fallout from it. Airlines are still canceling and delaying flights. Thankfully, my work computer didn't end up dying, but I think if I were actually on VPN at that point, it would have probably gone to crap for me. So I dodged that bullet, but I know we did have one of our main services that we use throughout the day for my job. That was down for a better part of that Friday. And I talked to several other friends who their computers were completely bricked until they got a fix, so they couldn't do anything. And so the whole thing was, people were blaming Microsoft, and I would say Microsoft has some degree of blame to this, but the people that CloudStrike really, they're the ones that really screwed up. So, and if there are a lot of podcasts, there was literally the Verge cast today did a pretty good job of going through like what happened and different things. So check that out, or check out other videos or podcasts. But the rough gist of it was that, so CloudStrike is really like, it's not something that like you and I would use as end users. It's something that a lot of businesses use, and it's like a security suite, like getting certain driver updates and security patches and things like that. And so a lot of businesses use it, but it doesn't work like, where you do Windows update and, you do an update and then you says, you got to research your computer. These things have super, super low level access, like literally kernel level access to Windows. And because they have that such low level integrated access, and they can just, whether it's several times a day or once a day, you don't even know that this, like if your company uses this, you don't even know that those updates are happening in the background because they're just pushed out to you. But apparently CloudStrike had sent out this botched update that like had a bad driver in it, and so Windows got confused about it. It was corrupt, and so it's like, well, I don't know what to do with this. I'm not going to let you through. And then so then Windows would blue screen, and sometimes you could reboot your way out of it if you rebooted enough times, but a lot of the times you literally had to have an IT person come to the computer, physically boot it up in safe mode, and delete a file that was causing this corruption, and then you could reboot it again, and then it would supposedly work. And, this isn't something that a lot of the employees could do, because if you're in most businesses these days, they will lock computers down. You do typically, as an employee, you do not have administration, or you do not have administrative rights to your computer. You're lucky if you can adjust some settings, let alone uninstall or install programs. So it caused a lot of problems. But a lot of our core infrastructure relies so heavily on this. There's a lot of things that I really hope that this triggers some sort of deeper examination about, like, how do we fix this so that we don't have this again? Whether it's different types of redundancies, if it affected, like, I really wonder what the procedure was. Did they just, this time they rushed through it and they just released the update? If I was releasing an update that went out to millions of computers, you better bet that as a company, I'm going to have a private network. I'm going to have a test, some test machines, and we're going to put this out to our test group. We're not going to put that out live to everybody right away. This is something that you think they should have caught internally before they basically shoved it out to the world. But then on Microsoft's end, it's like, well, I guess there's something in the EU that says they have to allow security companies this deeply root level access because it's a competitive thing. Well, you can't have your stuff in there and then block other security services at this level, or something to that degree. But, like, one of the suggestions that I heard on the podcast was like, well, maybe, okay, if it messes up your driver so bad and it keeps, Windows keeps seeing that it's rebooting itself, maybe after 3 to 5 times, it rolls back and gets rid of whatever just happened, so that you can get to a working state without needing to have somebody come with admin access to help you out of it again. Does everything need to have that level root access? Again, I posted something on Twitter the other day when that happened about, you remember how I've said there was a couple games that I couldn't cover properly because of this anti-cheat bullshit software. And it's one thing if you're doing multiplayer, but if you're playing a single player game, there should be, even if there's a single player and a multiplayer game, as long as you're playing single player, there should be no reason you need to have that anti-cheat software running. And I'm not going to disable Windows level security so that another program can have kernel level access and fuck up my computer the way we just saw happened on Friday. And so I hope that Microsoft really takes a look. Well, maybe they have to for security software, but for something like anti-cheat, like, yes, I hate cheaters. I don't like cheaters if I play multiplayer. I get that. But at the same time, I just don't think that should have that low level of a kernel level access. It just shouldn't be. Because if it can get, basically, at that level, it can do some really gnarly stuff to your system. So, yeah, that was a thing I really didn't think I was going to wake up to on Friday morning. But wow, it made me think of that when we were talking about the whole bug thing of, like, oh, if you wouldn't release it to the sighted audience, why would you do that for people with disabilities? But yeah, so that's been another crazy thing that happened just within the last few days. There's, it seems like a large part of things have kind of come back to normal, but people are still working through it. And I can only imagine the living hell that some of these IT professionals have been going through, especially for these companies that have gazillions of employees and branch offices. And if you have to end up going to each computer and terminal, and remember, it's not just computers. Things like ATM machines often run on Windows. Kiosks, displays, just any number of things. And people are like, well, then just use Linux. Well, then if they did that, something would just happen with Linux. So it's these companies got to work better together, and there has to be something so that a system can either recover for it or recover from it, or I don't know what has to happen. I don't know what the right answer is. I'm sure it's really complicated, but like I said, as much as we are depending on companies like Google and Microsoft and Nvidia and Apple and Amazon, it's like, what if this wasn't just airlines and, I mean, I guess there was some hospitals and stuff so that's a critical thing. You don't want things going bad in a hospital where it's literally life and death. But what if this was something like, I read some of these books where you get these terrorists that are targeting different things, and it's like, what if, and this wasn't even a virus, this wasn't even a hostile thing, this wasn't like a terrorist trying to hack in or anything. This was just something that, whoops, this CloudStrike released a really bad update. But I'm betting that gave a lot of these, malware people some pretty horrible ideas, and it kind of scares me what could happen in the future, because what if this attacked our water purification? What if it attacked our electric grid? What if it attacked some just really super core services that everybody relies on? That's scary, and it could happen. So it gives you a lot to think about. Couple other things before we wrap up. Kind of an interesting conversation I heard a couple different times in a couple different places lately. Just like difficulty in games and that, the whole digital versus physical. And one of the things that I think the industry is coming to, and I kind of actually hope it does go this way, is, one of the things that I've said many times is like physical releases are largely worthless or meaningless right now. Because back in the day, you would get a game and you'd buy it, you'd put it in your system, whether it's a cartridge or a disc, and you own the game. Well, now, especially with everything going live service and, day one patches and 14,000 patches throughout the life of a game and different things, like, it's cool that games can be fixed and games can be updated with new content. But I think over the past, many years now, because we've had a lot more of that access, like, oh, well, we can just patch our game. A lot more games have been releasing buggy, unfinished, jank, whatever you want to call it. So one of the trends that I'm kind of seeing that I think could work, that would appease, that would help, that would make both groups of people happy, is I kind of like the idea of doing a digital release first for a game, because, well, then it'll launch until, developers release more stable games again at launch. A game can be updated, it can be fixed, it can be, people can add new content to it. Maybe you want to add some new missions, new maps, new characters, new skins, whatever. Do all that digitally for a while. Then let's say 6 months, a year down the road, especially if the game does well, then you could look at having a physical release after the digital release, because now the game should be patched. It should be more in a finished state. You may, because you get the initial, and a lot of games will release with the initial release, and then they'll have the game of the year edition, or the, whatever they want to call it, like the ultimate edition, where it's like, oh, now it comes with the base game and the next 2 expansion packs, or the whatever season passes that came with it, or whatever. So you could get the complete edition of the game in physical form, and then you could actually put all of that onto a cartridge or a disc. And then if you want to, again, for your biggest fans, you can just, release the game in a physical version. And if you have the means to do so, you could do like a special edition with some sort of physical thing, like whether it's a poster or a statue or a, whatever it is they choose to include with it. But I kind of like the idea of, for the people who really love, like, there's certain like movies or games where it's like, if I really, really, really love that franchise or really love that game or movie, I will buy a physical version of it because I want it. It's like I bought that Cowabunga collection. I bought the Shredder's Revenge because I love the TMNT and I love some of the collectibles that came in it. But I'm not going to buy every game physically because digital is really convenient. So I think this is a great way to, like I said, work around the whole, unfinished and buggy release date windows. You get that out there digitally. Hopefully things will improve with that anyway, but you get that out there, and then for the fans, once the game has been out and it's been more stabilized and maybe more content has been added to it, I like the idea of then you release a physical release, because then the people who want to collect something physical on their shelf can have it, and God forbid they might actually have a complete game, or at least a properly functioning one. So that was kind of an interesting discussion that I heard talking about. We also, one of the things I've also talked about fairly recently is Game Pass and how that's been such a really good deal, especially if you have a disability and you're wondering about accessibility of a game. If something comes to Game Pass, whether it's on Xbox or PC or both, it's a great way to check out, hey, am I going to be able to see well enough to play this game? Or does this game have any accessibility features? Even if it does, maybe I can't afford the game right now, but I can go download Forza, or I can go download whatever it is and play it on Game Pass. Microsoft did just announce they are reconfiguring. They're basically, just like every other service is hiking up the prices of their services. All the streaming video services are doing it. And yeah, Microsoft has. I'm not going to go through it because I don't even fully understand it. It is sort of confusing. Like you have they're converting it to, like, you have a standard Game Pass where you can play online and you get a few other benefits, but you don't get the day one games. I guess they're going to have some selection of games that you can play, but you're not going to get, like, oh, when Fable comes out, or when Perfect Dark comes out, or when any of these games this fall that are going to be on Game Pass. You don't get that with the standard Game Pass anymore. But if you get Ultimate, then you get like things like game streaming, and you get the day one releases and such. I almost considered dropping Game Pass because, like, well, I'll just buy the games that I want to buy. But then I thought about it and I'm like, well, for now, especially when I want to cover things for the channel and I want to see how accessible they are for people and myself, I'm going to keep it around for a little while, because I know I looked at this fall and went, there are enough games that I do want to try, and I wonder how accessible they are going to be. So I'm going to keep it around because I can try these games. Like, I literally did a video a week or two ago for Still Wakes the Deep, a game I may not have ordinarily picked up. But not only did I do a video for it, I finished the game and I really enjoyed it overall. That was a game that I may not have ever really found out about or really bothered to check out, because, if it weren't on Game Pass, and I'm glad I did. There's been a few other games that have been really neat that I'm like, oh, yeah, this is really cool. But there's also been a few games I'm like, oh, I'm glad I tried this on Game Pass, because if I would have bought it, I would have either had to get a refund, or I would have just been upset that I bought that game because I just was not able to play it. So it sucks that it's going up in price, and especially, and I think it's the EU again. They're like, hey, didn't you just spend a shit ton of money, you guys, buying Activision Blizzard? So if you have so much money to buy this, I don't remember how many billions of dollars it was. Like, you spent billions of dollars to buy Activision Blizzard, and so now you're gonna jack up the price on Game Pass for your customers. That seems a little anti-competitive, and so there's some. I don't know if there's an official like lawsuit or something, but I heard something about that the other day, and so I mean they make a good point. It's like, well, yeah, I know they're restructuring it or whatever, but like Microsoft has a ton of money, and if they spend that many billions of dollars to buy Activision Blizzard, um, they should keep their Game Pass as is, and especially you look at it from the consumer point of view, you know, yeah, Microsoft has done a couple of good things lately again, but like, and their Summer of Gaming event was pretty good. But Microsoft's gone through a lot of crap the last couple of years. Like, they do something right and then they completely screw it up by doing three things wrong. And so Xbox doesn't have such a great Xbox doesn't have the best reputation with gamers these days, and so they're having trouble selling their consoles a bit more than Sony is right now. And people are just, well, where are the games, and why are you doing this, and this isn't working, or whatever. All these different things that are happening. Do you really want to raise the price of Game Pass and piss off gamers even further, and like kind of mess up one of the good things you do have going for you? Okay, sure. I mean, maybe it may, I mean, it probably makes sense for them. Of course, they want to make their money, but I don't know. Now it just seems like a really bad time to do something like that. Like, you've gained some good attention over your summary of gaming event. You've got some good stuff coming out this fall. You're kind of getting back out of a little bit of all your recent negative press. And then you go do that again. Like, it's just, I don't know, Xbox kind of baffles me sometimes as of late. And to wrap up, I said it's been a crazy busy month. Like, work has been nuts. Hopefully that's going to be winding down a little bit here toward the middle of August or so. I'm hoping, at the very least. But on the plus side, we've got some fun things to look forward to. We've got, speaking of the TMNT stuff, where like Turtles fans are eating really good right now, because we've got a new game that's out on the Switch that I haven't gotten around to playing yet. It's coming to PC later this year. I think there's another TMNT game coming later this year, like a 3D beat 'em up kind of a deal. We have Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or Trials, or something like that. That's coming like early August, so that's a series on, is it Paramount? I forget which one what service it's on, but it's based on the recent movie that came out, the Mutant Mayhem movie that came out last year. Is on that iteration of the Turtles, so we're getting a lot of cool Turtles stuff. We already got part 1 of Cobra Kai season 6, which if I hadn't rambled so long already about other stuff, I'd love to talk about that more. Like, I could talk about Cobra Kai. It's my wallpaper. I love the series. Yeah, there are some cheesiness. There's some cheesiness to it, but it's some good cheese. It's not your horrible cheese. Like, I enjoy the hell out of Cobra Kai. And what I will say, I mean, all these cash-ins, all these reboots, remakes, whatever, need to take a look at the Cobra Kai series, because I like I liked the Karate Kid movies. They're fine. They're good. I like them. But this is how you bring, if you want to bring back a 30-year-old series, this is how to do it, because They pay homage to the originals, but they don't over rely on it. You've got a great new cast of characters. They still gradually bring in characters from the old series of movies. Um, it's just really, really well done, and it's so fun to watch. And I'm just annoyed. They were the season 6. They did 5 episodes this month, 5 in November, and then 5 more in sometime in 2025. And then I didn't even know this, but I guess they're gonna make a final wrap up Cobra Kai movie as well. So who knows? But I really hope they stick the landing. We've had several series that have kind of really fizzled out and had kind of some bad endings. So I really hope that they do a cool ending. I've generally been really happy with the season finales of the series, and I just hope it continues because I love the series and I would love it to go out on a high note. Yeah, I could literally like talk about Cobra Kai for a long time. Like I love it. And in the end of the month, we're actually getting more Futurama as well. Like, God, that series has been brought back a few times already. And, I would still say the golden age of it was the original run, until it got canceled right before, what was the end of season 4, like right before the movies came out. I think the last episode was the Devil's Hands Are Idle Playthings, where, there's a robot devil and Leela and Fry, with the whole, what do they call that instrument? Holophone or whatever. That was a cool episode. Like, that was the golden age. But, the Comedy Central series wasn't that bad. And the season that they did last year or whenever it was actually was pretty good. I enjoyed it. So, you know what? I will always take some more Futurama unless it gets really, really bad. But so far, they've done a pretty decent job. So, a lot of fun stuff to look forward to, despite all this chaos that's going on right now. So, that is where we are going to wrap it up. I know this has been another long one, but I really didn't expect anything less. You probably didn't either. But hope you guys made it to the end of the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Give it a like if you did. Follow me on Twitter at BGFH79, twitch.tv/illegally-cited, illegally-cited.com, right here on YouTube. And until next time, thanks again for the support, and I will chat with everybody again later.